You are a dragon priest. You are lying in the dark of your own tomb, and you can hear them coming. The dry drag of feet on stone. Your servants rising in the black to kneel at your coffin and pour their strength back into you, the way they have every night for longer than you can count. You have stopped asking why you cannot simply stand and walk out into the sun. You were promised you would never die. You are going to get exactly that. And somewhere in that promise, there is a single word you misread, a word you signed your whole life against. By the time you understand which word it was, you will already be the thing lying under the mask. There is a version of this you were never told. They gave you the world first. That is the part you remember cleanly, even now. Once, you walked in daylight, and men knelt when your shadow crossed them. You were not a servant of kings. You were the equal of kings, and the kings knew it, because you spoke for something with wings that could unmake a hold in an afternoon. You made the laws. You set the tribute. You decided which villages ate that winter and which ones were an example. And above all of it, you held the one privilege no other mortal was allowed. You could say the word. In the old tongue, it was drakon, dragon. A whole people were forbidden that single sound on pain of death, so that when it was spoken, it could only be spoken by you. An entire race kept from one word, so that the word would always taste like a god in your mouth. That was not an accident of custom. That was the shape of the whole arrangement, pressed down into a syllable. You told yourself it was devotion. That is what they taught you to call it. But you collected the grain from people who starved for it. And when they stopped bringing it, you remember what came down out of the sky, and you remember standing beside it, unburned, while it worked. You called that order. You called it holy. And the power that let you do it, the fire in your hands, the voice that could break a man's knees from across a courtyard, was never truly yours. It was lent. Lent in exchange for one thing, paid in full, every single day. Obedience. Not a gift. A leash. You just could not see the hand holding the other end. And then they gave you the mask. You have never looked at it properly. Not once in all this time. The masks were made by the dragons themselves in the deep years before memory, and they were not ordinary metal. They were made to defy time. Each one carried a name in the dragon tongue: sorrow, rage, shadow, brutality, vengeance. Every mask named for the exact thing its priest had become. And your mask, the highest of them, carried a name too. You have always assumed that name was yours. It is the softest assumption you ever made, and the most expensive. Because with the mask came the promise, the one that made all the kneeling worth it. The dragons promised their priests eternal life. Not a metaphor, not a blessing on a temple wall. A literal covenant. Serve without question, and when the body fails, you will not follow it into the dark. You believed it. You believed it so completely that when the end came, you did not run. You were not the only one. You were not a lone madman either. You were part of a faith, and the faith believed together. In the mountains, a priest named Ragat gathered the last of the loyal into a monastery and waited for the return. When the soldiers came, he did not surrender. He had the wells poisoned. He had his followers drink, all of them, down to the children, and he laid the children in the ground himself, not out of cruelty, but out of certainty. Certainty that death was only a door, and that the gods would open it again from the other side. Another of your brothers drained his own blood from his body before he died, and sealed it away, so that when the resurrection came, he could pour himself back into himself, whole. That is how sure you all were. You built your dying around the promise, the way you built your living around it. So you never asked the question that was sitting in the room the entire time. Every night, your servants climb from their coffins and give you their strength. You have felt it your whole undeath, the warmth arriving in the dark, the maintenance of you. You assumed it was worship. You never once asked what exactly it was keeping alive. The promise was true. The eternal life was real. It was simply never meant for you. Not you, the mask. The evidence points one way, though the world never says it outright. What the dragons made deathless was the mask. The name on it does not fade, does not rot, does not forget itself for 4,000 years, because that was the thing built to last. You, the man who wore it, the one who knelt and believed and buried the children, you were always the part that was allowed to end. And you did end. A long, long time ago. The person who had a name and a face and a reason went out like a lamp somewhere back in the dark, and you did not notice, because there was no longer a you there to notice. What your servants kneel to every night is not their priest. It is a shape. They pour their strength into a coffin to keep something moving inside it, and the thing that still remembers being you is the metal resting against the bone. The mask remembers your name. You do not. That is not the tragedy of it. That is the mercy of it. Because if any part of you were still awake in there, you would have had to be awake for all of it. You spent a life, and 100 lifetimes of loyalty, buying deathlessness for the one thing that was never you. And still, some part of the promise held, didn't it? Some part of you is still here, still waiting. Your God did come back. Far in the future, the sky over Skyrim fills with wings again. The World Eater returns, exactly as the wall promised, exactly as Rogot swore to his children in the dark. And he raises the dead. You feel it happen. You stir, the whole cult stirs, the faithful shift in their coffins for the first time in an age. This is the morning you died for. This is the reward. And he walks past you. He raises his own kind. He calls flesh back onto the bones of dragons, brother by brother, and he does not so much as pause at the door of your tomb. He came back for his own blood, never for yours. The faithful were never in the plan. You were the tool that built the temple, and no one comes back for a tool. The one who finally does open your coffin, ages later, is not a god and not a brother. It is a stranger with a blade, come to take the mask off your face. It is worse than simple abandonment. The priest who betrayed the dragons, who broke the covenant, spat on the promise, turned his voice against his masters. That one kept his body. That one kept his name, his mind, his face, and traded a tomb for a whole realm of knowledge and 4,000 years of being awake to want things. The priest who stayed loyal enough to beat that traitor in single combat was thanked with an oath he could never put down and a grave to keep it in. It was never faith that the dragons rewarded. It was usefulness, and you stopped being useful the moment the war was lost. That is all your loyalty ever bought here. The leash, worn to the very end, and the grave waiting at the end of it. You crumble to ash when the stranger's blade finds you. All of you do. That is the tell, if anyone were watching closely. The loyal ones come apart into dust, and only the traitor was ever solid enough to leave a skeleton behind. So we come back to the sound of feet on stone. There it is again, the way there has always been. Except these are living boots, and the hand that reaches into your coffin is warm, and it is not here to worship. It closes over the mask and lifts, and the worship is over, and you do not go anywhere, because you are already gone. Somewhere far to the north, there is a fallen city and a golden mask sealed inside a broken statue. The highest mask of all, and no one alive can tell you the name of the priest who wore it. Not the scholars, not the dragons, not even the mask. You gave everything you were to be remembered forever, and you got your wish. In the cruelest handwriting it could be written in. The name survived, and you were not invited to keep it. Everyone leaves something behind with a name on it. Almost no one gets to decide whether the name still means them by the time it is found. If this is the kind of story you want to keep beside you at the end of long days, There are more of them here, waiting. The lamp is out. The stranger's footsteps fade back up the stairs, and the mask goes into the dark of a bag that has never once said your name, because it never learned it, because there was never anything left to teach.